Welcome back to another session of Career Talk Thursdays. I'm Roan and I'll be your host for today. So, ito na yung pang 13th session natin and we will be talking about job interview tips, do's and don'ts to stand out in a job interview. So, para ito sa mga fresh grads, Gen Zs, mga young millennials, and mga shifters na gusto malaman ano nga ba yung mga practical and efficient ways to really stand out in a job interview. So, before we start, I want to let everyone know that this event is hosted by Prospel. So, sino nga ba si Prospel? So, Prospel is a career portal and jobs board specifically designed for students and fresh graduates. So, we help you get the best start to your careers by providing you all the informations, day in the life articles, career events, and jobs that are for you. So, samahan nyo kami magkwentuhan. And if you have any questions, feel free to message them. And sasagutin natin yan lahat mamaya. So before we begin, let me introduce our guest speaker for this session. Ayan, nakikita naman na natin. As a leader, she interviewed hundreds of aspiring candidates in her field of work where she realized personally and professionally that integrity, passion, and continuous self-improvement are her non-negotiables. So, which are what she hopes to impart to her audience today. So, let us all welcome Miss Lyra Laverne Alcaraz.
5 team members under my umbrella and currently slowly supporting other geographies of my current role. But today, what I'm going to share with you is job interview tips, do's and don'ts to stand out in a job interview. Most of these are very basic, and I think it's very important to learn the basics in terms of interview. Your goal is to stand out, but sometimes when we try so hard, that's where we sort of get derailed, right? So for now, again, these are based on experiences. Different companies have different things they're looking for, right? We will go into details on that, why it's very important to know that. And every interviewer is different. Every interviewer is different in a sense that meron silang certain things na hinahanap. Depende sa role that you are applying for, right? And we will go into that later. So that is for today's topic, how to stand out in an interview and to share my experiences. And later on, if you have questions, I'd be very happy to answer them for you. All right, let's get right into it. Let's discuss first the do's. Okay, the first thing you need to do if you have an interview is research. 3 things: research the company, research the interviewer, research the location. It may sound silly about the location, but we'll get into that later. All right. First is research the company. You have to make sure that the company you're applying for has the same values that you have. Are you aligned with their mission, vision, core values? Is this really the company you really want to work for? I understand that sometimes, of course, with the pressure of society, family, friends, we are pressured to, oy, kailangan ko na makahanap ng trabaho. Kahit ano na lang. I don't agree with that. As a personal opinion, you have to look for a company kung saan nyo gusto mag-work, where you will be happy. Working is not just about compensation. It is a factor, but research the company if it's aligned with your values. You don't want to see yourself here that you're going to jump from job to job. It may be okay for the first year or 2 because you really need to figure out and find out for yourself ano ba talaga yung gusto mong gawin. But in the longer run, you have to research the company if it's the company you want to work for. Second, is the company a casual company like the BPO setup? It's also different from BPO to BPO. Are they smart casual? Pag nag-interview kayo? Or back in the hotel years ago, the hotel is very formal. If you are invited to an interview to a hotel, you have to be in your suit. For the guys, ties, leather shoes, the right height of heels for the girls, stockings. You really have to research the company before you go to the interview. That is very important because you don't want to go underdressed or overdressed, right? Just right. Second, research the interviewer. In these times, lahat nasa search na over the internet. And the power of LinkedIn, use it to your advantage. Mostly, recruiters would tell you, sino mag-interview sa'yo. And try to search for them, especially in LinkedIn. Check their history. Saan sila nag-work? How many years? You can sort of learn the character of the person as well on the things he or she is sharing via their LinkedIn, right? Search the interviewer because it will help you build better rapport when you go to the interview. And it's very surprising for me in my past experiences when the interviewee calls me by my name. It only means, oh, ni-research nila ako. right? And it gives that very great impression that you've done your job as an interviewee. Everything is searchable now on the internet. It would be good if you are prepared for that. Next is research the location, especially now that we're slowly going back to return to office and interviews are now being done face to face again. And personally, it's far better to do interviews face to face because you can see the whole character of a person and you can present yourself better. Mas magkakaroon ka ng opportunity ipakita anong meron ka if it's face to face. However, we'll split the two, right, later for face to face and virtual. Why is it very important to research the location of your interview? One, you have to check if it's commutable. Remember, if you are wearing a very good outfit, magko-commute ka, maiipit ka sa MRT, makikipaghabulan ka sa bus, it's hard. So you kind of have to research how are you going to go to the location. Anong floor ba siya? Meron bang buses or jeeps in between? Especially places like BGC, Ortigas, Makati. Nako, even myself, I still get lost in Makati. Pare-pareho yung itsura ng building. Nasa right side ba siya? Left side? Ang entrance ba niya? Near the road or nasa likod? Very important you do your research to know the location because it'll help you be there on time. And it'll help you be there prepared. Okay, so very important that you do your research for the company, right? Interviewer and location. All right, now, paano kung virtual naman yung interview mo? It's still the same. Not necessarily the location, but check the links. Is it working? Yung sinend ba na link sa'yo ni recruiter, gumagana? Are there certain applications you need to download para gumana yung link na yon? You don't want to encounter these problems during the time na interview mo na. Right? So make sure to do those things before you go to your interview. Next, do practice. Practice, practice, practice. I know practice doesn't make perfect anymore. There's no such thing as perfect, but things that you need to do or the things that you need to practice before you go to an interview. Your outfit, your whole look. Why is it important? I've had experiences in the past wherein I've seen a lot of candidates. They're very uneasy with what they're wearing. Right? Maybe hindi sila sanay na naka-formal. Maybe hindi sila sanay na naka-heels. Right? For the gentlemen, baka hindi sila sanay naka-suit or naka-coat. And you would see, I could feel that they're really uncomfortable during the interview. It's very important you try to practice your overall look. For the ladies, may bangs ka ba? It's best to put a clip on your bangs para hindi ka hawi ng, hawi ng hair during the interview because that might be a little distracting to the interviewers, right? So kailangan practicein niyo siya, right? Mag-heels ka ba? Kaya ba maglakad ng matagal ng naka-heels? I see a lot of interviewees who change their shoes in the CR. That's actually good, right? Para hindi ka mahirapan on your way. But overall, you need to practice your overall look. What are you gonna wear the night before pa lang? Right? Masikip ba yung damit? Baka matagal mo na siyang hindi nasuot. Or sobrang luwag na ba niya? Because you lost a lot of weight by taking care of yourself. Who knows? Practice your overall look in your outfit. It might be a minor detail, but it's also very important. I'll go back a little bit to the research. Why you need to practice your look or your outfit. Again, research if the company is a formal, or if they would require you to wear something formal, like the business suit, skirt, jackets, coats, right? Because not everybody is comfortable wearing those. Kaya kailangan yung alamin, talaga, do your research, right? And practice everything that you're gonna wear, even accessories. Best to keep it simple with a set of pearls. If you don't have, at least stud earrings for the ladies, for the gentlemen, watch. I've had experiences also before. May in-interview ko, ang haba-haba ng dangling earrings niya. She looked good, don't get me wrong. She really looked nice. But it keeps moving, right? When she's talking and she's moving, gumagalaw yung earrings niya, medyo nakaka-distract siya. Instead of the interviewer trying to pay the best attention to the things that she or he is saying, baka ma-distract lang sila with those items. So very important that you practice your look or your outfit. Next item is practice what to say. Why? Usually, interviews start with a question, how are you? And tell me about yourself. I know it sounds cliche. Alam ko, medyo gas-gas na yung question na tell me more about yourself. But why do interviewers ask each and every time, tell me about yourself? It's to set the tone. Personally, for me, why I ask that, I want to see if the candidate is nervous. Kinakabahan ba siya? Especially for fresh graduates, especially for those the first time i-interviewin. I want to shake off yung kaba nila. Right? That's why I always ask with, tell me about yourself. Because you should be proud of the things you're about to say. about yourself. Tandaan nyo, interview to. You need to sell yourself. Practice what to say with the basic questions. Hindi ko sinasabing kabisaduhin ninyo, right? It'll sound scripted. Interviewers would know if it's scripted, but at least the basics, right? Something that's not on your CV or resumes anymore, right? I'm not sure if everybody knows here what an elevator speech is. Imagine nyo na lang, an elevator speech is if you're given 60 seconds, makasama mo yung CEO or a big boss inside the elevator, it's just the two of you. How are you going to introduce yourself and impress that person under 60 seconds? So think about that. A brief, not naman history, no? History talaga baka sabihin mo, no, pinanganak ka pa, mag-start ka doon. But at least your strengths. Who are you? What are the things that you're passionate about, right? So practice what to say. Next, you have no idea about the power of a mock interview. Apologies, you might hear backgrounds of an ambulance. It happens, right, in the home setup. Apologies for that. I'll go back. You don't have an idea about the power of mock interviews. I have a sister. She's 22 years old and she just graduated last June. And just like you, she's preparing for a lot of interviews and she's planning her life, right? And we've done a lot of mock interviews at home. And I am happy because she gained a lot of experiences in the interviews that she went to. She was so happy. Practice. Practice with somebody at home. Practice with your friends. It'll give you a sense of conversation. Paano mag-receive ng question? How's the timing? Kailangan ko ba sumagot agad? Nagmamadali ka ba? Natapos ba si interviewer magsalita bago ka sumagot? Right? So practice a mock interview. Don't underestimate the power of practice. All right, next we are on our third. Focus. Don't do unnecessary things or action. This is a personal pet peeve of mine. It may be a cause of nervousness. That's why I try to, tell my candidates always to shake it off, right? Sometimes I ask them to stand up. We both stand up, right? Stretch. Focus. You know those pens where they fidget out on the table or their fingers, right? Or they have those fidget toys. Please try to remove them first or don't do unnecessary things or actions. And if the interview is going to last an hour, it's not going to hurt to turn off your mobile phone. Mobile phones are the biggest distraction into anything, into meetings, interviews, dinner with friends, lunch with family. We are sort of masyado na tayo nakadikit sa mga cellphone natin, right? And I am personally guilty of that for some occasions. But for interviews, ladies and gentlemen, turn off your mobile phone for the short period of your interview. It'll help you focus, really. All right? The last items below, tips for better focus. This goes not just for interviews, but for meetings and anything, really. Sleep. If you guys know that you already have an interview the next morning and it's very early, sleep. Get that 6 to 8 hours of sleep. That's related to rest. You need to rest your body, your mind, so you can have better focus the next day. Next is eat, right? You need to eat. Ayaw nyo naman na marinig ni interviewer na kumakalam na yung tiyan nyo during the interview. Other people, they don't like eating heavy breakfast. I myself don't eat heavy breakfast, but at least I have my coffee or a piece of bread, right? Make sure you eat because you don't know how long you're going to wait there. There are some interviews that are scheduled. There are some interviews that takes more than an hour. It depends on how many candidates are present. So you better eat. You have to prepare for that. It'll help you focus. Don't ever go to an interview hungry. I've seen it 100 times. Don't go to an interview hungry. Pero wag naman kayong kumain ng mga foul food. Baka, good thing, may mas tayo ngayon. Pero baka naman mag-onion bagel ka talaga going to the interview or something garlicky. Wag naman. But at least prepare yourself so that you can give better focus to your interview. Last item there is meditate. I wasn't a firm believer of meditation before, to be honest, because makulit ako eh. Hindi ko kaya nakapikit. And then for 5 minutes, wala kang gagawin. Because I thought meditation was just closing your eyes and that's it. No. There are a lot of forms of meditation and it helps you focus because it gives you the opportunity to listen to your body. My form of meditation is when I have a cup of coffee for myself in the morning. Those are the times where I think about what's going to happen to my day. Am I tired? Am I excited? Am I not feeling well? Meditate. There are a lot of 5-minute meditation videos on YouTube, Spotify. It'll really help. Trust me, it really helps. Next item under the do's is listen. Listening is very important. It's related to focus, and listening is given to an interview. How are you going to respond if you don't listen, right? Listening is not just verbal. You have to listen, or you have to train yourself how to read the room. Marami bang candidates? Ako, parang pagod yung mga tao dito ngayon. Baka mainit ulo na interviewer and things like that, right? Listening is not just verbal. It's also towards the environment. But why is it very important to listen? Because like the quote says, I hope you can see it on the screen, one of the most sincere forms of respect is actually listening to what another has to say. Remember, this is an interview. You have to understand the question for you to respond correctly. And you can only do that if you listened very well to the interviewer. Right? Again, that's related to focus. If you don't have the proper focus, you cannot listen well, won't be able to respond to the question. Okay? Last on the do's. I only have 5 do's and 5 don'ts. I tried my best to keep it simple. Again, there are a lot of researches out there about do's and don'ts, but I'm happy to share with you these experiences that gained a lot of yeses from the interviewers in the past. Last, under the do's, is take time to think. This is a personal favorite of mine. Why is it very important to take time to think? Because for me, 3 things. It'll show confidence on the interviewee's end. It'll show that you are listening or you have great listening skills. And it'll show that you are serious about the interview. I've encountered a lot of interviewees wherein they would keep saying, and then their eyes would roll around the room, right? You will lost contact with the interviewer. If there is a question and it's very hard to answer, be honest. Hi, Ms. Nira, that is actually a very hard question. Can you give me a minute to think? Absolutely. Mas nai-impress ako sa taong kayang sabihin, wow, that is actually a hard question. Because I myself in interviews before have encountered a lot of questions. Why would they think that it'll show you're serious about the interview? Because hindi mo binabasta-basta yung tanong nila. And I loved seeing candidates who would tell me, oh, give me a minute to think. Ay, confident siya. Wow, nakinig siya sa tanong ko. Uy, seryoso to sa interview niya. He or she must really want this job. Take time to think. Don't be shy to say, oh, I need a minute to think. Huwag niyo naman sabihin 5 minutes, no 10 minutes naman one question. Baka hindi na kayo matapos ng interviewer. But for questions, take time to think. I am honestly impressed for people who listens and says, I need time to think. Hindi ka hasty about your decisions. It'll also show if you get the job, hindi ka basta-basta nagdedesisyon because you know how to listen. And that's very important. Okay, those are the 5 do's that I personally know. And of course, I will leave you with visualize a successful interview. Oh, I'm so sorry. The GIFs are not working, but it's okay. It's very importante dyan yung visualize a successful interview. Even if you don't get the job, right? Of course, ang goal natin is makuha niyo yung job, right? But even if you don't get the job, if you're happy about the result of your interview, that is a successful interview. Sometimes people get it the first time. Sometimes they don't. And it's okay. It's okay to keep trying because sometimes what's meant for you is going to come for you. Visualize a successful interview. Your overall goal is to get the role. But if you don't, I mean, that's not, I don't want to be a hypocrite in saying, okay lang yan, try again next time. But at the end of the day, chances are not the same for everybody. It's also realistic that way. But it's successful if you learned something. It's successful if you were happy about the result. Right? So visualize a successful interview. But again, I am crossing fingers and hoping that wherever you're going, you get the job. All right. Now we go to the don'ts. Okay. There are a lot of things that I've seen in hundreds of interviews about the don'ts. But again, I'm just going to give 5 that are, I personally believe that's important to me. One is a given. Another given. Don't be late, please. Don't be late. Whether it's personal or a virtual interview, do not be late. Most of the things I've seen in the past, they say that be there 15 minutes early. It's a little different for me because of the past experiences I've had. I always try, when I was still working at the hotel, my role was a sales manager. And we get to speak with the bosses of the company, the CEOs, the president, and time matters to them a lot. And if you are late to your appointment, it doesn't look good. Same with interviews. Why do I say 20 to 30 minutes early? Again, I'll go back to the research. Nasa building ba to sa Ortigas, BGC? Yung building mismo, the reception would need to get IDs from you, right? Kailangan mo mag-register. Hindi mo alam kung gaano kahaba ang pila sa registration. May reception ulit sa company kung saan ka mag-a-apply. You would need to register again. And before ka pa makarating sa interview mo, wala, late ka na. 20 to 30 minutes because you have to give yourself enough time to all of those unexpected outside forces. The building, the reception, the ID, the lines, right? And you will have that time to prepare yourself. Nawala na ba yung makeup mo kasi pinawisan ka na? Nadumihan ba yung shoes mo kasi umuulan? Nadumihan ba yung polo mo? Kailangan mo ba magpalit? For the ladies, I see them go to the restroom, nagpapalit sila ng heels, right? It'll give you time to prepare yourself so you look your best on the interview. So please, please don't be late. On virtual, usually you enter 10 minutes before. Why? You have to test. Is your internet okay? Gumagana ba yung link? Again, na-download mo ba yung proper app? Mamaya hindi, right? So it'll give you proper time, right, to prepare yourself again. Please, please don't be late, and it'll give a bad impression if you are. Next, please don't lie on your CVs or resume. Just don't. Like I said on the introduction, integrity for me is a non-negotiable. And companies have third-party securities who would check on your background and if you are lying on your CV. So please just don't. Don't be afraid if your CV or resume is one page. You just graduated. If it's not too long, that's okay. Right? What matters is you present yourself well, right? And you will be able to build up your resume or CVs in the future. But just please don't lie on your resume or CV. No. All right. Next don't. We are just on the last three. Is do not badmouth a former work, a colleague, a company, college, where you were. Two major things why. It'll show professionalism. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody on the call, they might think that you would do it to them in the future if you leave. It's best to be professional. I agree that there are times wherein our experiences are very bad from a former colleague, classmate, company, but take in the lesson, share the lesson, right? But do not badmouth another person. It's a red flag. We may have, I understand, right? Sometimes baka matindi yung pinagdaanan niya in a former experience, right? But take away the learnings. Take away the learnings, right? But please do not badmouth a former company, colleague, or your former work. We are down to our last two. Okay? Don't exaggerate, don't assume. Okay? I came from sales also. I have a sales background. And something that I've seen in a few interviews is they tend to oversell themselves. You don't have to. It is an interview, right? Kailangan mo ibenta yung sarili mo. But sometimes, overselling can lead to the other part wherein you'll be talking too much. You will lose focus. You will get derailed on the topic or the question. Sa sobrang gusto mong mag-share na off-topic ka na. Sa sobrang gusto mong ibenta yung sarili mo, na lost in translation ka na sa actual question or actual situation. Right? It's best to manifest that you will get the job. I believe in manifestation myself. It's okay, right? To look at it from a perspective. Again, ako mismo nagsabi sa inyo, visualize a successful interview. But don't assume that you already got the job because sometimes that will lead to arrogance. You might lose your pace if you become arrogant. It's okay to be confident. Interview is the time wherein you have to boost your achievements, your successes, right? But try to draw the line between being confident and arrogant. All right, we are on to our last don't. And this the last topics that I place in my do's and don'ts are the ones that are very important to me. You might be asking, ang weird naman nung nasa other box. Ano yung mga receptionist EA? We'll go into that later. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Doesn't mean you're a fresh graduate, you cannot ask questions. I personally admire interviewees who ask questions. Ask about the culture. Ask about the place. Ask about the next steps. you also have options. I'm sure when you go to interviews, that's not the only interview you're going to, right? Because if you know yourself, if based on your qualifications, you also know and the experiences you've had, you want to have options. Ask about the next steps. Gaano po ako tagal maghihintay? Will be someone contacting me? Should I send an email after a week to ask for updates? Ask about the next steps. Don't be afraid, right? It'll show you're also interested. Next, don't be afraid to ask questions, but also be careful. I remember an interviewee asked me something about a political question, which to me wasn't relevant to the interview. So be very careful about religion, preferences. Careful. It's okay to ask if they're okay to talk about those. I always ask my interviewees if the question is about sharing experience, if it's okay with them to share something personal, but we have to ask. Don't be afraid to ask questions because it's going to it might place you in a difficult spot if you don't. Make sure that your questions are relevant to the job, to the role, to the company, to the culture, right? When you ask questions, I personally believe that you're really interested. Okay, on to the last box. Bakit may receptionist dyan, EA, tsaka other employees? Weird naman. In my current line of work, I have my team who reports to me who's handling the reception area. I kid you not, they know how to assess interviewees just by waiting. Our role is to connect with the applicants on a daily basis, and from there pa lang, binabasa na kayo ng mga tao at the workplace. It's not just about the interview, it's how you present yourself overall, how you wait. Pasensyoso ka ba? Uy, hindi pa siya natatawag, nagreklamo na. Eh, makulit yan habang naghihintay. Don't be afraid to ask the receptionist, how is the culture here? Do you like working here? It'll also give you a background na parang, ay, ang saya ng environment dito. Right? They're watching you. How you wait, how you sit in the corner, how you prepare. If it's for bigger roles in the future, right, as you build your career, don't be afraid to ask the EAs. If it's for a higher position and your interview is with a director, a VP, or somebody with an EA, don't be afraid to ask the EA, how is it working with your boss? How is the culture here in this company? Are you happy? Right? And other employees. Pagpasok mo pa lang sa elevator, you would see, usually companies would have the ID lanyards, right? Ask them, uy, diyan ka pala nag-work, ni-interview ako. Oh, sungit naman ng mga employee dito. Right? Uy, ang bait ng employees doon, they're very helpful. Good luck, kaya mo yan. Right? Don't be afraid to ask questions. It's very, very important that you ask questions because you have to understand ano yung pinapasok ninyo. You have to understand what's in it for me, right? Hundreds of applicants apply on a daily basis. And follow through with an email saying thank you. I do this. I personally do this if I go to an interview or at these interviews before. I say thank you to the person for their time, their effort, their questions, right? Every single interview you go to, you'll have a takeaway, you'll have a learning. Say thank you to the interviewer. Thank you so much for your time. I had a lovely conversation with you, right? I've learned a lot. I hope to hear from you soon. It'll create good impression and retention. Remember, interviewers handle, if not tens, at least hundreds of people a day. They might take notes, but others might not remember you. This is another way to stand out from the hundreds of applicants. Uy, nag-email siya. Ay, siya nga yun. Siya yung merong black hair na kulot na na-interview ko. Ay, gusto ko siya, magaling siya. Or kung hindi ka niya naalala, with the thank you email, they will go back, uy, siya pala yun. Oo nga, okay pala siya. Eh, paano kung na-interview kayo ni interviewer ng 4:00 na ng hapon? Pagod na, kalimutan na, inaantok. Follow through an email to say thank you for their time and yours. It's an opportunity for them to remember. Okay, so that's it. That's it. It was just short and sweet. I tried my best. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have questions, comments, I love to take them on.